Hi there, Luke here with another video. For those of you unfamiliar with our channel, my husband Tyler and I make travel videos where we document our experiences since moving from North America to the UK. If you've been following our Eurotrip 2021 series, you'll know that we had traveled in the summer and autumn of 2021 around Spain, Portugal, as well as some of Eastern Europe, including Romania, Moldova, and Ukraine. This is the very final video of that series where we wrap up our time in the capital of Ukraine, Kyiv, as well as the infamous site of Chernobyl. So if you want to see some of what these areas were like when we visited in the autumn of 2021, shortly before the events between Russia and Ukraine, do be sure to stay tuned because I hope that through these videos we can highlight the beauty and amazing things to see in this underappreciated country of Ukraine. And so that once the situation settles, that you book tickets to visit because there are so many things to see and appreciate here. If you do enjoy these videos, please be sure to give a comment, like, subscribe, and a tip with the super thanks button if so inclined, as that is always super helpful. And without further ado, let's dive in and talk about our time in Kyiv and Chernobyl. If you watched our last video, you'll know that we had wrapped up our time in the western region of Ukraine, in particular the city of Lviv, as well as some of the charming, cute, smaller rural regions of this area. And we took a train from Kamyanets-Podilsky to Kyiv. Once we arrived in Kyiv and settled in a bit, we headed out to explore, having a fairly busy afternoon exploring some of the major attractions in Kyiv. One of the first places that we stopped at on our walk around Kyiv was at the Park of Eternal Glory, which is a pretty park with trees, walkways, and monuments, including the monument to the unknown soldier. This was all just on the way though to our primary first attraction, which was the Kyivo-Pecherska Lavra, which is a large monastic complex. It is also known as the Kyiv Monastery of the Caves and was founded in the year 1051. It has since been a preeminent center of Eastern Orthodox Christianity in Eastern Europe. The complex also has great views overlooking the surrounding area. After this, we headed to what is called the Motherland Monument. The monument is a stainless steel sculpture which formed part of the National Museum of the History of Ukraine in the Second World War. After we were finished there, we headed across town to St. Andrew's Church, as well as the famous Andriivsky Descent. This is a pretty cobblestone street in an artsy neighborhood. Like we mentioned in our last video, we were visiting in autumn and it was really nice to see some of the autumn colors here in Kyiv. In particular, a great way to see some of the autumn colors in Kyiv is to visit the Volodymyrska Hill. We walked through this area in order to reach the Friendship of Nations Arch, and it was a busy but amazing first day in Kyiv. Over the next few days, we leisurely explored some of Kyiv, doing different tours and seeing different things. One tour we did was doing an interesting subway tour, which was where a guide took us around some of the Soviet-style subways that exist in Kyiv to this day. So that was cool to learn about some of the history as well as how it affects modern-day Kyiv. Another experience we had was having a tour through the hip Podil neighborhood. The Podil neighborhood is one of the oldest neighborhoods of Kyiv and is the birthplace of the city's trade, commerce, and industry. Podil even served as the city center up until the 19th century. After our walking tour in Podil, we headed back to the main town center to the historic Golden Gate, which is a 1960s replica of the 11th century Golden Gate, which acted as a main fortified entrance to the city during the medieval period. We finished off our busy day of exploring Kyiv by enjoying some Lviv cherry liqueur at what is called Piana Vishnya. The next day, we explored some Orthodox churches in Kyiv, the first one being St. Volodymyr's Cathedral. St. Volodymyr's Cathedral is one of the city's major landmarks and the mother cathedral of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, Kyiv Patriarchate, one of the churches of Orthodox tradition in Ukraine. After finishing at St. Volodymyr's Cathedral, we headed to another cathedral called St. Sophia's Cathedral. St. Sophia's Cathedral is one of the city's best-known landmarks and the first heritage site in Ukraine to be inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List. St. Sophia's Cathedral is a unique monument of architecture and monumental art of the early 11th century, having the biggest preserved collection of mosaics and frescoes of that time period. Our last stop of this particular day, seeing cathedrals, was a visit to St. Michael's Golden Domed Monastery. The monastery is dedicated to Michael the Archangel and serves as the headquarters of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. We finished the day with a delicious dinner at a restaurant called Korchma Taras Bulba. This is a lovely restaurant serving traditional Ukrainian cuisine, as well as traditional decor and live music. The final area I want to touch upon in this video is visiting the infamous Chernobyl exclusion zone, which is the site of the infamous 1986 nuclear explosion that happened in this area of Ukraine. This was an experience I'll never forget. It was so many things for me. It was enlightening, it was sad, it was interesting, it was educational. It was so many different things that I felt when I visited here, and I hope that by sharing some of the footage and some of my experience that you'll understand a bit more of why this is so important, especially in Ukraine's, but also world history. So let's talk about our experience that we had here. We personally booked a guided tour with Get Your Guide. It is currently not offered at all because of the current situation in Ukraine, but at the time they were doing guided tours to Chernobyl. Our tour lasted around 12 hours and included pickup and drop off near our accommodation in Kyiv. The tour included a visit to the Chernobyl area, as well as the Chernobyl power plant, Duga radar station, and the town of Pripyat. The Chernobyl disaster was a nuclear accident that occurred on the 26th of April 1986 at the number 4 reactor in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant near the city of Pripyat in the north of the Ukrainian SSR, at that time part of the Soviet Union. Called the world's worst ever civil nuclear incident, it is one of only 2 nuclear energy accidents rated at 7, the maximum severity, on the International Nuclear Event Scale. The initial emergency response, together with later decontamination of the environment, involved more than 500,000 personnel and cost an estimated US $68 billion. For those who are concerned about the radiation exposure that you experience when visiting, they do provide you with radiation monitors, which does tell them the cumulative radiation exposure that you have throughout the tour, and I felt safe throughout the entire experience. You have the choice to also rent a portable radiation detection device, which you can use to see for yourself the radiation levels at different places that you see. And it is interesting to see how much it varies based on the different areas of the places that you visit. It's a bit eerie when all of the people around you's alarms start going off because there are higher radiation levels in particular areas. We stopped first in Zone 3, which is the safest and farthest away from the nuclear site, which is located in Zone 1, in order to visit the town of Chernobyl. One thing I found particularly interesting to learn in this area is that, believe it or not, there are people who chose to return to live in the Chernobyl area. These tend to be older people who really had established their lives in this area and had a strong desire to return, and they actually did return. There's a large military presence here that's there to kind of keep an eye on them, as well as provide weekly food deliveries to them. And it's my understanding as well that their families are allowed to visit, including their children and grandchildren, but it is tightly controlled how often and for how long they are allowed to visit because of the radiation exposure that is present here. After this, we headed to Zone 2, which features the Duga radar station. The Duga radar station is a Soviet over-the-horizon radar system, which was used as part of the Missile Defense Early Warning Radar Network. It was used to detect incoming nuclear missiles from the USA. There were 3 such over-the-horizon radars across the Soviet Union, 1 in Siberia and the other 2 in Ukraine. It was frankly quite massive and awe-inspiring to see this structure. We had a quick stop at the Chernobyl power plant, where there's a monument commemorating the lives lost in the nuclear disaster. Some areas in the immediate vicinity are still highly radioactive. Finally, I would say the most sobering part of the Chernobyl visit is visiting the small town of Pripyat, which was the area where most of the families lived who worked at the power plant and was the main hub of everyday life in this particular area, and you can see evidence of that. It really is kind of like a time capsule of this period in the Soviet Union, and it's really eerie to see these still preserved parts of the city that they can't really remove or touch because of the radiation exposure that still exists on these structures and items that are scattered throughout Pripyat. This particular area does have higher radiation exposure, so it is a ghost town. No one lives here and was completely abandoned after it was evacuated by the Soviet government when the events unfolded. Overall, it was definitely a sad tour to go on, but I think it was important, and I'm really glad that I did it because it really helped me appreciate what happened more than just by watching a TV show or a movie. So if in the future this site ever opens up again to the public for tours, I definitely do encourage those who feel safe and happy enough to do it to see it for themselves. All right, everyone, that is it for this video, and that is it for our time in Ukraine. That is it for our entire Eurotrip 2021 series. If you enjoyed these videos, please do be sure to give a comment, like, and subscribe. It means so much to us. And if you want to continue seeing our travels, we have plenty more stuff coming out for you guys, so stay tuned for that. I'll see you at the next one. Bye.